Hello and good morning, everyone. The topic of this webinar is Ocular Truth, the impact of the market research universe. And my name is Sabrina Schroeder, and I'm here with my colleague Payal Shah. And together we will take you through our thoughts on the crucial role of visuals and also show you how to creatively visualize and design methodologies that help in visualization. So this picture pretty much describes our daily lives. Our attention is distracted. We are constantly on our phones, laptops, talking to a colleague, all at the same time. And with a human attention span of less than 10 seconds or 2 minutes during a presentation or conversation even, communicating brand solutions and insights in the most effective way has become a critical challenge of the future. So the question is, how and not the what. So how do we share consumer insights in the most interesting and creative way, knowing the human behavior? And how do we communicate our findings in a creative way to clearly and precisely convey the insight? This is where the power of visuals come into that. These visuals help us narrate stories that give life to the subject or the insight. It's an expression in the form of pictures and references that transform the understanding of behavior to a much deeper level and that help brands distill information and to decode it.
And brands then take help of these visuals to design systems of products or consumer personas or environments and build manifestations of the entity. So what you see on the screen here is, how brands really take help of these visuals to correlate culturally in a contextual way to create, consumer personas, mindsets, etc., to understand how the brand visual system can really manifest itself into products and hence the environment. At HTP, we and Happy Thinking People is what is a short form of HTP. We apply visual reasoning skills via design that enable this process and interpret meaning of the content, making it easier for brands to use them. It is a process of learning new things and being open to possibilities that lead to design and ideating methodologies, unearthing insights in order to craft a brand or a product story to create a business solution. Edward Tufte, that we see on the screen here, is a famous American statistician and professor who advocated information design and is a pioneer in the field of data visualization. He stresses upon the fit-for-purpose approach when addressing an insight or a data or a behavioral find, and the need to visualize data depending upon the content and the context. And his theory and the research world, right, that we belong to coincide in multiple ways. He professes that since we are conditioned as human beings to understand visuals and stories that are weaved in facts and insights better way than just stating the facts or numbers being displayed on the screen. He also says that a human brain functions 60 times faster when visually stimulated than just text on the screen. Hence, when brands understand this context and not just data in isolation, they prove to better communicate with their audiences and deliver better solutions for them. And this is when visual storytelling comes into the picture, right? This is when stories become powerful. So at Happy Thinking People, we take this very seriously and we exercise these principles and create methodologies that are creative in nature and help distill the mundane orthodox ways of deriving ideas. This helps us on our toes to constantly evolve with rapidly changing times in India through the power of creative thinking that also helps us, kind of navigate so many angles to the culture and the consumer behavior that's constantly changing. So now let's just quickly talk about different ways of how we create these creative methodologies in a very visually impactful manner to ensure that we have a lot of solutions and business strategy that can be derived from it. So let's talk about how do we transform data into immersive experiences. To start off, we design digital booklets. So these are to aid stories about the culture and design them in a context, in a contextual way. So in our field where we constantly conduct secondary research, and sometimes we often get too much data and we get data centric and versus being insight centric. And in order to ensure that a lot of this isn't being read, applied, and then made sense of, we design booklets in a digital magazine format that is easy to read, they're easy to, it's on the go. It's also welcoming versus opening yet another file in your computer or a laptop. So with our in-house designer, we collaborate with them to enable brands to delve into the intricacies of the culture through these designs. And this kind of helps the category shift as well, because that's how you really understand what are the nuances, the macro and the micro. So what you see on the screen is a quick example of an FMCG brand that we worked with, and they wanted to really delve into the micro and the macro trends.
Moreover, we also start creating videos as an output. So instead of presenting them with another PowerPoint presentation, we really communicate the research findings and what consumers have said through consumer-led videos. This really helps a lot to make brand managers and stakeholders understand the content, the context, and the insights within minutes. So it takes only, let's say, 5, maximum maybe 8 minutes for them to really buy into the research findings, to understand it. And because the information comes from the consumers, it is so much more credible and authentic as well as powerful. So by using videos, it's very simple yet very definite in creating consumer narratives that provide a very clear understanding of the need gaps, of the emotional quotient and functional barriers. And we learned that whenever we present them, they're so much stronger in terms of communicating, yes, the research output, and whether it's stakeholder meetings, whether they're being integrated in workshop or board meetings, they really provide a first-hand understanding and brings across the truth and drives the point home, especially when some of those insights and findings that we have are sometimes harder to accept, probably. So this is something that we've seen has picked up and is increasingly also demanded because it's quick, it's easy, and very powerful. One of the other ways how to present consumer insights and consumer behaviors especially are by creating mindset personas, which we frequently do in our consumer mindset segmentation studies. So what you see here are, for instance, a few examples of mindsets that we created for a retail brand. And in order to bring out all these intangible features of the consumers, we created detailed personality sketches together with our in-house designer, which gave a very good understanding of their attitudes, their overall personality, their outlook towards life, their belief systems, and their degree of social life. So we usually sit together with our illustrators in a very collaborative manner to best represent these mindsets based, of course, on the analysis that we've done up front, on all the qualitative research that has gone into it, and then to cull out what makes these different mindsets, these different segments special, and how can we best represent this. Because by looking at these type of mindsets and personas in a very crisp manner, it is easy for anyone in any organization to understand how to reach out to them, how to target them, how to communicate to them without having to always go through a lengthy presentation.
And to even go a little further, we also create lifestyle personas in addition to the mindset personas that Sabrina just said. This also helps weave the narratives with the product that is also being tested. For example, what you see on the screen here are a few lifestyle personas on your left for a healthcare brand, and it talks about the attitudes, the personal goals, parenting style, and priorities for a child. So for example, in this scenario, we had a product that was catering to a child, and of course the decision makers were the parents. So this kind of information design also enables us to further explore reactions and how that can be rationalized by the behavior. And such one-pager infographics really help the client or the brand within the organization also to circulate them amongst the managers and to quickly grasp the context and the product experience vis-a-vis the mindset. On your right is what you see is a universe picture. So this is a quick representation, a fun way of talking about, mindsets, and the smaller ones that orbiting around them are the subsets within the mindsets. And that's one way we realize that it's a fun way of expressing and communicating, like a universe of mindsets within that category. And on similar lines, we also create infographics to transform the very boring factful data into simple graphical representation, which is more precise and it's visually impactful, like we see on the screen, because this is an everyday job. We see this every day, but really our responsibility is how do we communicate what we see and hear in a better way. Additionally, we constantly get requests to review, the brand or client previous data that has been researched, or there are strategy decks in place to help them understand what does it all mean. That's when we create insightful data packs, and we use the power of design to visually communicate them to best uncover the insights, and which also kind of communicates the core essence of the data and not just factual information. And really, a lot of times we understand that yes, we have all of this, but what do we do with all this data? And these data packs give them better contextual clarity and enable strategic actions for quicker results.
As a company, we of course also believe in developing ideas by understanding the holistic picture and not just in isolation, for which we conduct a lot of different workshop types that help us really cull out insights via creative techniques, imaginative exercises, and co-creation. So while we spoke so far about how to better present the output, you can also, of course, bring visualization into your methodologies. So when we, for instance, conduct innovation workshops or ideation workshops, one of the best approaches is visual stimulation. So whether it is a magazine rip through to help personify a product or a brand or help them come alive, which is a very classic, I would say, tool to use, but it's still extremely useful and powerful. You can also present a host of different category mood boards to help imagine and think beyond the norm, or use cross-category visuals and imaginative techniques that help stretch our minds and foresee what's possible. In workshop, but also within consumer groups and consumer interactions, when we do ideation, it's often difficult for people to express themselves verbally or precisely, I would say. So when this is not enough, we create tactile and visual stimulation to help consumers depict and describe their words. We create an assortment of textures and visual boxes like the ones you see on the screen right now that really help the people to express themselves, to innovate, to come up with new maybe packaging or product ideas, and really bring more depth and layers to the idea. Make it a little bit more obvious for us also to understand how they have imagined things, which makes it immediately tangible for us, for our clients, as well as for the creative agencies that eventually work on those products product ideas, taking them forward. And furthermore, what we do as well is in our product and innovation sessions, we let the power of design empower the ideas and push some boundaries. So while we use design experts and illustrators in our sessions to sketch out product ideas that the participants have ideated and help them bring alive, it really is a very strong add-on element, I would say, in concept creation. While we usually use concepts in a verbal manner and create our insights and benefits and RTBs, adding this additional element of on-the-spot ideation and visualization of those ideas, whether it's functionality or it's a packaging design or it's just maybe a mood board or a scene that comes to life or even a holistic story as well. There's so many things that you can do with this. And these sketches not only bring value to the ideas, but also facilitate the notion of reality that then helps the brand and product designer decode the technical aspects of it. So such productive sketches provide a view of the possible versus simply talking about it or writing concepts of it. So to conclude, I would like to leave you with this thought, and it is something that we are constantly striving to be. The market research is transitioning and transforming at a fast pace, and only the creative fittest will survive. So
well, thank you for listening to us and spending some time with us here. We are open to questions.
So Sabrina and Paul, thank you for that. We've got some quite good questions coming through, so hopefully you're ready for them. We've got a question that sort of, I imagine a few people are thinking about. How important is it to have, you know, a designer or an artist or a creative person in-house who can help you with these things?
Well, I think it is extremely helpful and useful. So since we have added this to our skill set, I would say we really see a different level of output that we are able to provide. So what we see is that sometimes, you know, we are bridging the gap between the agency and the client, and it really helps to work faster, provide quicker outputs than having to wait, you know, for all the different stages till it becomes visual through the creative agency. So I think it's definitely a very valuable add-on that one can have if you have scope for it, because it just helps you to bring your ideas and outputs across in such a more credible and stronger and convincing way.
That's great. And it sort of takes me to another question. Particularly, I know you touched on video a bit, and sometimes, you know, there's video and there's video. So, you know, you could have at one end, you know, the Hollywood movie with terrific production values, cast of thousands, big budget. Or you could have a really insightful comment from a participant that perhaps they've taken on their mobile phone or, you know, webcam or something like that. How important do you think the production values are compared to, say, the authentic comment or someone just grabbing something quickly? Do you kind of think about those things when you're presenting results and pulling these things together?
Yes, of course. I mean, again, coming back to what Payal presented earlier, it's all about fit for purpose. So depending on where you're presenting and what or who your audience is, you may want to choose the output quality and the narrative of your video. So we work a lot with different quality levels of video. Sometimes if it's a final board presentation, or if the key output of your research is only that video, you may want to invest more in it and make it like really high quality, closer to your Hollywood movies. But for your regular research, I think there are a lot of really good and very simple and effective options how to quickly create a video by grabbing video footage, stitching it together, subtitling it, and bringing across that point that you want to drive home. And that can be facilitated nowadays without heavy investments, simply buy a Mac, the software is on it, to be honest, and you're pretty much good to go for your everyday research findings.
Okay, super. We often talk about, and I know you'll have seen many NewMR things in the past where we talk about finding the story in the data. So when we're thinking about producing things, there's this idea of what's the importance and the difference between producing the story as opposed to finding the story, and how do you make sure that the how or the operational side of bringing this together doesn't drown out the storytelling and the findings and the meaning?
That's a very interesting question, Sue. So I think, you know, what we do here is from, for example, say we have a methodology, it could be a few interviews, it could be ethnos, it could be anything. And like Sabrina said, that, you know, it depends on the objective. So we create a storyline based on the insights that we have from real consumers. So when we create the storyline, it is producing it from the lens of the consumer. So yes, we are creating and producing them, but we also we often alienate ourselves from creating something that is very vague, and which is why we focus on also creating mindsets when we have a consumer. So it's important to, when you create a story, we explain what this person is, who this consumer is, what is his contextual lifestyle as well, cross-category, and then come to the topic and hence your results. Because I think if I'm answering the question correctly, the stories are weaved within the insights and they are not outside the context.
Yes, I think you've nailed it there. So thank you very much for joining us today and presenting.